Sundays with Sanju.
What's going on, y'all? It's Bullish Harry, and welcome back to another video. I'm going to quickly end these formalities. You already know the drill. 2020 predictions for the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. If you want to see the Eastern Conference version of this, click on the top of the card right now. Anyway, without further ado, let's start. The Portland Trail Blazers and the Los Angeles Lakers probably have the most anticipated 1-8 matchup I've ever seen in my lifetime. Obviously, the Portland Trail Blazers are a top 5 seed in the West talent-wise. They unfortunately were out of Jusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins for most of the season. But when they got them in the bubble, they went on an absolute run. They had thrillers against the Mavs, Brooklyn Nets, and Memphis Grizzlies that let them become the 8th seed in the West. Unfortunately, I think it's the end of the road for them, and it's mainly because how they play on the court. They are mainly an offensive talented team and show no effort on the defensive end. They let both the Memphis Grizzlies and Brooklyn Nets hang 120 plus points on them, though both these teams were missing their main guys in Jaren Jackson Jr. and Kyrie Irving, Spencer Dinwiddie, respectively. And for that, I think the Lakers will win this series in probably 5 games. I know this might be a hot take, but I just don't think they have a way to guard AD and LeBron James. And look, I understand vice versa. I don't think they can contain Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. But if you consider the fact that McCollum is injured with a fractured back of some sort, and Damian Lillard pretty much has to hang 40 plus a night for them to survive this series, I just think it's unlikely for Portland to win this series. And thus, Lakers in 5. But don't take anything away from Dame Lillard. He proved to everyone this year that he's a superstar. And put some respect on his name, bro. Man, the Luka stan in me wants to believe the Mavs can complete the upset and beat the LA Clippers in 7. But I just don't think it's possible. We saw this matchup already in the bubble. And when the Clippers put their mind to it and defensively lock up the Mavs, they can absolutely destroy these guys. And for that reason, I think the Clippers will win this series in 5 games. I just think the Mavs aren't ready. Though they are the best offensive team in the NBA, according to offensive rating, I just think really beside Luka and Porzingis, they don't really have an answer for all the offensive weapons the Clippers have. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Marcus Morris, even Zubac on some nights. They're just too talented for the Clippers to lose to the Mavs. But don't get it twisted. I hope Luka balls out in this series and proves to people that he may be the future in the NBA. Though I did predict the series will end in 5 games, I think these will be a very competitive 5-game series with games coming down to the wire. But overall, the Clippers will probably pull away just due to their defensive prowess. They have the assassin himself in Kawhi Leonard, and they can manipulate the high screen and roll with Porzingis. Unfortunately, Dallas's youth and defensive immaturity will prematurely end this great series. Man, talk about a series that's super interesting on paper, but probably won't get the eyes that it deserves. I'm talking about the Denver Nuggets and Utah Jazz. And it's probably one of the more interesting playoff series in the first round in general. It's really hard to predict who would win this series. Obviously, I think the Denver Nuggets do have the matchup in the fact that Jokic absolutely cooks Gobert when they play each other. However, you got to consider the fact that Denver is trying to transition Gary Harris and Will Barton back into their starting lineup. And they've been the worst defensive team in the bubble, which absolutely helps a Utah Jazz team that's struggling offensively when their second leading scorer, Bogdan Bogdanovic, was out of the season due to some sort of injury and didn't enter the bubble. So it's hard to predict. Personally, I think this is going to be a 6-game series where it's going to be very back and forth. However, I do think the Denver Nuggets will come on top on this series, just mainly due to the offensive guys they have, and they, in theory, could play better defense than they've been showing. With guys like Jeremy Grant, Paul Millsap, and Michael Porter Jr., they have the defensive fortitude to lock up this offensively inept Jazz team. And considering Utah's primary scorer is still only Donovan Mitchell after that Bogdanovic injury, It seems more likely the Jazz will sputter out of control like in previous years in the playoffs when they faced Houston. Couple that out with the fact that Jokic can absolutely murder Gobert in a 7-game series, I think Denver just has enough guys to outlast the Utah Jazz. Now, who knows? Mike Conley has been playing better in the bubble than he's been showing the whole year. So I may be wrong in this. This is probably the most unpredictable series I'm going to try predicting. Actually, this and the next one just shows how the West is so weird and interesting this year. But anyway, for now, I'm going to predict the Denver Nuggets finish off the Jazz in 6 games. Man, who would have thought the 4-5 matchup in this year's playoffs would be these two teams? The Oklahoma City Thunder, just an off-season ago, traded both their superstars and got a quote-unquote washed-up Chris Paul and a bunch of draft picks, while the Houston Rockets got their new and improved point guard in Russell Westbrook, and with their MVP candidate player in James Harden, they were expected to be one of the best teams in the West. However, though they are a great team in the West, the OKC Thunder are right there with their quote-unquote washed-up Chris Paul, an emerging star in SGA, and a bunch of other pieces like Gallinari, Dennis Schroeder, and Steven Adams. They've proven they're one of the best teams in the West, and this matchup is further complicated with the fact that Russell Westbrook is out for a few games. So in the end, who do I think is going to win this series? Now, I think people will automatically go for the Rockets just because they have James Harden, the MVP candidate he is. And the Thunder, though a great team, do seem like a very overachieving bunch that don't really seem like a serious threat in a 7-game series. However, hear me out. The Rockets have radicalized small ball and have pretty much played a style of ball that I like to call tiny ball, with most of their guys being below 6'8" and having no legitimate center on the roster that plays significant minutes. They're playing a very risky style of play that hasn't been proven in the playoffs. Moreover, they've proven to win these matchups against teams that have size, namely the Lakers and the Bucks. However, it is important to consider they are winning these matchups due to their amazing percentage from 3, even though they are being out-rebounded by double digits every game. So in theory, if a team faces the Rockets that is able to out-rebound them, which most teams can, but also defend the 3 at an elite level, this team could beat the Rockets in a 7-game series. And couple that up with the fact that they're missing their second superstar in Westbrook, this proposition seems more likely. Well, I don't want to ruin the surprise, but the Thunder may just be this team. They actually are the best team in defending the 3 beside Toronto at 34%. And considering that's Houston's bread and butter, that's a great sign for them. Moreover, with pieces like Terrence Ferguson, the newly rejuvenated Andre Robertson, CP3, and SGA on the defensive end, they can defensively intimidate the other guys on Houston, causing them to be horrible from 3 and forcing James Harden to take a lot of shots, namely bad ones, which is the formula the Golden State Warriors used on them not too long ago in the 2018 Western Conference Finals, where they historically missed 27 threes in a row. Now, I don't think they're going to miss that many threes in a row, but they do have the blueprint to intimidate the Rockets. With their amazing ability to oppose the 3 ball, having one of the best offensive rebounders in the league in Steven Adams, and having crafty defenders like SGA and CP3 to guard the perimeter to make sure James Harden can't dish out the ball to open guys in the corner, I think the CP3-led Thunder can beat the Houston Rockets in 7 games. Obviously, this has to do a lot with the fact that Westbrook isn't playing for the Rockets for at least a few games in this series, because he definitely adds a dimension the Rockets are missing without their star point guard. Now, this might be a hot take, I understand, and who knows, I might be completely wrong. The Rockets might just be too good for them and James Harden might go off, but I have a sneaky suspicion this series is going to be a lot more closer than people are going for it. And thus, I'm going to go with the Thunder side, the underdogs in this case, and say they're going to beat the Houston Rockets in 7 games. Hopefully they finally put some respect on my boy CP3's name, because he's been slandered and downright disrespected by the Houston Rockets when they traded him. And hopefully he finally gets his revenge. Well, there you go. Another one in the books. We just predicted the first round matchups in the Western Conference. And if it plays out the way I predict it will, your second round matchups will be the Los Angeles Lakers versus the OKC Thunder and the Denver Nuggets versus the LA Clippers. And I, for one, cannot wait because these series seem amazingly fun. CP3 versus LeBron. We got Jokic versus Kawhi. These are great matchups that honestly will go down to the wire. For that reason, I hope I'm correct. If you like the video, guys, make sure to subscribe, like, comment, hit the notification bell, all the drills, you already know. It truly helps the channel, and I really want to make a community where we can talk about the NBA and just discuss and have fun. Anyway, that's going to be it for the video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! With 0.6 of a second remaining.